What is going on, everyone? Rockstar Pool 69 with another roundup of... Yeah, we'll sit like that because I think I'm a little better seated like that. Another roundup of Formula E, and after, well, we'll start with a race we haven't rounded up yet because we've just been so busy that we haven't really got to it. So let's very quickly and very briefly wrap up the Santiago Chile E-Prix. I think there was only two key points to come from that race. I think the first point was the heat. It was very, very warm. Probably the warmest E-Prix that they've ever had over in Santiago. And to be fair, even though it was hot, it wasn't really affecting the cars as much as it should. I mean, we've seen F1. I've seen F1 cars and Indy cars be affected by extreme heat, such as it was in Santiago. But I think the Gen 2 cars, they coped with it very well. They coped with it perfectly. I think there was a few issues towards the end of the race with Pascal Wehrlein. They were worried about his heating in the car. But other than that, I think they were, to be fair, expected and... yeah, I think the Gen 2 car coped very well with how the race went, and that then brings us on to the other talking point, I think, from the Santiago E-Prix, which was the lack of what's the word I am looking for? The lack of consistency. That's the word I'm looking for. With the Formula E officials. Now, the end of the race saw Sam Bird win for Virgin and Pascal Wehrlein for the Mahindra team finish second. But it should have been Alex Sims finishing third, but he was given a penalty, we shall say, and was hence moved down the order. But for me, the penalty was very harsh, because if you look at the replay, and I've looked at it from the Santiago race, I looked at it for the Mexico race as well, there was no contact. If it was contact, it was very, very minimal. And there was stuff happening throughout the race that for me was worse and wasn't getting penalised. You had Oliver Turvey and Stoffel Van Dorn incident. That got no penalty. You had an incident between Jean-Eric Vergne and Tom Dillman. That didn't get a penalty. You had an incident between Andre Lotterer with Jean-Eric Vergne and Antonio Felix da Costa. That didn't get a penalty. You also had no penalty with Oliver Rowland and Felipe Massa, when Massa was practically put into the wall, which was worse than Sims and Montara. But then you had penalties for when Di Grassi hit Lopez, rightfully so, because I think Di Grassi came in from an absolute freight train back. And then Montara got a penalty when he put Friens in the wall, supposedly. But he never put Friens in the wall. So for me, it brought up a lot of inconsistencies, and they needed to address those inconsistencies. Because, to be fair, I think Alex Sims, he did well for third place, and to be demoted because of an incident that may have happened but was very marginal, and for worse incidents to happen with nothing, then that's something that does need to be addressed. So that was Santiago wrapped up pretty quickly. Let's move on to the main event. So then, the Mexico E-Prix around the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, only using the short oval circuit, which disappears just after the pit lane of the main circuit and then comes back around just after the S's on the back straight, which takes in the stadium a redesigned stadium section for Formula E. F1 do a different stadium section compared to Formula E. But I think there was a couple of main talking points that came from that race. So, talking point number one, that incident at the very start of the race. I've seen some crashes in my time with Formula E, and to be fair, some of them have been pretty tame. I do remember the crash between, I want to say, Nick Heidfeld and I forget that Frenchman, Nico Prost. I believe it was at Long Beach in season 1. That's going way back. But the Gen 2 car had its first test in Mexico, and I think it's a test it passed with flying colours. A crash involving Nelson Piquet Jr. and Jean-Eric Vergne. Now, I saw the replays and heard the commentary and saying, oh, there was no fault. To be fair, I think Jean-Eric Vergne squeezed Nelson Piquet a bit too much into the wall, and when Piquet went to put the brakes on, he had nowhere to go. He was sailing over Jean-Eric Vergne's car, nearly hit the tyre barrier and the chicane where the Nigel Mansell, Peralta corner, where the F1 circuit comes out of the stadium section, and then Formula E go around in the Peralta. I do believe Alex Sims got a bit of contact from the back of Piquet as he flew over the car, but to me, that Gen 2 car is a strong car, because that was a very nasty and a very violent crash. Luckily, Nelson Piquet walked away uninjured from that crash, and I think it just goes to show there's been those that have doubted the halo. I am one of those people that will put my hand up and say I doubted the halo, I doubted the Gen 2 car and its structure. It passed that test with flying colours, and you are now not going to hear me ever mention the Gen 2 car and its structural rigidity ever again. But let's all be thankful that A, it wasn't a worse crash than it was, and B, he was able to walk away from it in one piece. So I think that just goes to show how much the Gen 2 car was a success. So that brought the red flag out so they could clear up the mess. When the race did get underway again, it was a bit of a boring processional race, and everyone thought, oh, it'll be fine, we'll go to the end, no problem, you can go max attack. But the last 2 laps proved to be the most exciting 2 laps of the race, because it was clear from, I think it was the 4 minutes mark to go, that a lot of the cars were not going to make it to the end of the race. And on the penultimate lap, the inevitable started happening. I think first the Nissans ran out of power, and they started sliding all the way down the order. And then when Pascal Wehrlein, who was leading at the time, crossed the line, he had about 2% of energy left, and it was roughly about 2-3% of energy to get around the full lap. So you were seeing an absolute defending masterclass from Pascal Wehrlein on Lucas Di Grassi, and it ended up with Wehrlein getting now I want to say he was pushed offline, because Lucas Di Grassi, he went for the pass, took the line, no problem there. But for me, I think he just didn't give Wehrlein any room to come back on, so Wehrlein cut the chicane. He should have stopped, he didn't. So rightfully a penalty was then applied just after the race to Pascal Wehrlein. But it literally was a race to the line to see who could get there before the power ran out, and Lucas Di Grassi was the one who crossed the line just a nose in front of Pascal Wehrlein, who tried to put him into the defending into the wall. We've seen that a few times from drivers. I remember Schumacher and Barrichello, Hungary 2013, 2014, I want to say, maybe even 2012. Almost into the wall there. So a bit bit crude on Pascal Wehrlein's part, but you got to do what you got to do to win a race. He thought he was going to win the race at the time, but he literally, as he came out of the last corner to the line, he ran out of power. So that was the end of the race. So Lucas de Grassi, the winner of the Mexico E-Prix. But for me, there was a lot of things wrong with the layout of the Mexico E-Prix. Now, I think this is about the third or fourth year we've been coming here. It's been practically the same layout ever since. And it's about time that the Mexico circuit gets changed. I am a big fan of the Mexico E-Prix. I just think a few little tweaks and a few little alterations and that circuit could give spectacular racing. I wouldn't have put the attack mode in the stadium section, if I'm being honest. But then again, someone's going to argue, well, where would you have put it? Personally, I think a good place to have put it would probably have been on the inside of the first chicane. Not the inside of the first chicane, sorry. As you go through the chicane, you got the little outside part there. I think there would have been perfect, because the line takes you to the inside of the next corner. So I think to the outside of the chicane, perfect. Or the corner as you enter the stadium section, put it on the inside there, like they did at the Saudi Arabia E-Prix. But for me, the wrong place to put it was on the inside of one of the tight corners in the stadium section. I also think, and like I said, it just needs a few tweaks, but what can you do to tweak it? I mean, could you perhaps extend the main straight? Could you perhaps take a chicane out? I just think it just needs a few little tweaks. Maybe tweak it in the stadium section or something. But it just needs a few little tweaks, does the Mexico circuit, to make it good again. But that's for other people to decide. It's not for ourselves. Anyway, that is all for us. I do believe the next E-Prix is Hong Kong on the 10th and 11th of March. Now, I might not be able to record that straight away because I'm going on holiday that week for my birthday. So it may be that I tag it up with China when they go to China on the 23rd and 24th weekend. So until then, thank you for watching this roundup, and we shall see you all next time.